Just to recap, we are recording this and it will get shared out. So if there is something proprietary that you want to ask, you can ask us later. I just don't want any, IP getting shared out. It is conversational as always. So if you've got questions for Pearl or us, the whole idea is to, have a conversation. Our focus, we can talk about anything, but our focus for this is all of the things that we did last year under the pandemic to try and do better from a sales and marketing perspective, but also on the sponsor side, what did they do to actually engage with vendors, since we can't go to trade shows, we don't have cocktail receptions to do any networking in, and also just coping with working from home. Some of us are used to it, for others it's new. I know we've invested in some technology and we've done like green screens and things like that. So that's what we want to cover off. And we've asked Pearl. She's graciously offered to be our guest. So I'm going to turn it over to Pearl. She's going to talk about Pilatus and open up our discussion.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm coming to you from Irvine, California. For those of you who just joined the call, I moved here back in July. I am an East Coast girl through and through. I grew up in the Bronx, New York, and you can't tell from me sitting here, but I'm about 6'1". And the reason I share that is because my height and just kind of the trajectory my life has taken has really been dictated by some like key decisions I've made. But I'd say the biggest was undergrad. I went to Villanova University out in Lancaster, or in Villanova, Pennsylvania. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with the area. But I'd say I think it was the day after Thanksgiving, my junior year. It was the fateful day that really changed my life forever. I was on the basketball team, and at the time it was the day after Thanksgiving, which is really important because I'd had quite a bit of turkey, and I decided that it was my time to shine in practice. And that was fatefully the last practice and last time I ever played basketball. So I broke my hip. And for me, that really changed my life in many ways. One, because I'd never had an injury. Wow. Two, if you're familiar with the anatomy of, the lower part of your body, I'm double jointed in both of my knees. So I hyperextended my knee so far back that it rammed the acetabulum into the socket and broke through. So if you can imagine, at the time I was 21 years old, my name is Pearl, and I had a cane. So I was walking around campus as Grandma Pearl. And for me, that was a really just meaningful part and just like a big part of my life in terms of just where I am now. Because I obviously couldn't play anymore. So our head coach said, Pearl, you can't play anymore. You can obviously leave the team, or you can decide to make yourself useful. And fortunate enough for me, like looking back then, I didn't think that this was a life-altering decision. I really chose the latter, to make myself useful. And that's really been a testament to my career path. I started in operations. I was able to go to grad school there at Villanova and just finish out my careers while traveling the world with the team. But really, it really just put that intense sense of competitiveness in everything that I do. So even if it's an impossible situation, kind of like what sales and marketing feels like now at times without being able to meet people, for me, I always, see it as like you have an opportunity, like you can make the most of the situation, or you can just leave the room. Because we're in such a unique time that, it's just a challenging time for everyone all around. And I think that can lead to a lot of empathy and a lot of great, fruitful relationship building moments if you just dig in and keep pushing forward. So out of that operations position, if you'll see on my LinkedIn, I've been on the CRO side, I've been on the sponsor side, and now I'm on the supplier services side. I'm head of business development for North America. Pilatus Comparator Solutions. So we specialize in comparator drugs. That's all that we do. So for me, it's really exciting to work with a dynamic company that has like a really huge footprint in the UK and globally. And I'm excited to speak with all of you and really learn about what's been working for you and like the creative ways that you've stayed engaged and kind of pushed through during these times.
Awesome. Thank you, Pearl. So I know there's a bunch of new faces. So everyone, with this meeting, this is now our 6th in the series. And I just want to make sure everyone knows you're free to turn your cameras on if you want. You don't have to, but also your mics. So at any point, this is literally meant to be a networking event. Normally, we would do this as one of the cocktail receptions at DIA or something like that. But since we can't do that, thank you, Nicole. We've got our drinks.
I see you, Nicole.
This is water, not vodka.
Well, all right.
Cheers. This is wine.
No judgment in what's in anyone's glass, that's for sure.
I'm the only one with milk.
Milk works.
It does
Now,
the body good.
Heather had shared in our Teams chat yesterday, I think. It was the coffee shop down your street or something, a friend. But they had said if you have your cup of coffee or your coffee mug with wine in it, you can periodically blow on it to make it look like it's hot.
Yeah, you should take a and do this. Everyone thinks that it's hot tea or coffee.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
And they won't know what's in there. Secret sauce.
See, that's something that I'm going to take down as things to do in 2021. Thank you.
Yeah, right?
He has a little picture. It was funny. We were dying and laughing. So I shared it with the team.
Yep. Oh, it's a good one. Yeah. So I'll kick this off with just some tips that we did. Back in March, we did our last. It seems like it's been forever now, but we did our last trip into San Diego in March of 2020, the first week, and we obviously haven't traveled since then. And at the time, I think we were all thinking this might last 3-4 months. We've had pandemic scares before. And it was sort of managed much more quickly. But the moment we realized we weren't going to be traveling for the year, we realized we needed to be able to represent as BD people as best we could, as though we were in person. And normally in person, you're wearing a suit, you've got all your collateral with you, you can look top notch. So we went immediately and bought nicer web cameras, microphones. We bought green screens. We created custom backgrounds, and then started doing a lot of web meetings. And figured out in Zoom you could do custom backgrounds and things like that. And that that really made a difference for us on the BD side, because at least when we're talking, I can see everybody's expressions, right? And now we've done so many, it really feels weird to take a cell phone call when there's no video.
It really does.
Yeah. And you can't tell, but the other thing that I had to do, because we've got a full house here as well, I moved my office into my unfinished basement because I needed the extra room for the green screen and I wanted to have a bit more quiet space. So if I turned all this off, you'd see, a very rough unfinished basement, but you don't know that, right? So that's one thing that we did. So I'm just going to turn it over. Pearl, do you have any suggestions or tips that you found?
Yes. So one of the things that I really was devastated by, as much as there are long days at conferences, you're in uncomfortable shoes and your clothes all day. Like for me, I really enjoyed connecting with people outside of the booth, at the food lines, at the bar at night. Like for me, that's when when people have their guard down and you're just having a bite, you're not selling them anything. So for me, the big challenge was in the absence of, and we'll definitely discuss what we're going, or like how everyone feels about virtual conferences and things like that. But at the time, pretty early on, I had to figure out, how do I connect with people? And for me, one thing that I found has been incredibly just useful and creative is offering virtual lunches. So one thing that I found is if you're feeding someone, they're listening and everyone's home. So and one of the things that I had a call with a friend earlier today, he asked me, well, what if they're not comfortable giving you their address? And he said, like, I had mentioned to him that, like, I like doing virtual lunches. And for me, my experience has been people that or clients that I've hosted were fine with giving me their address. I plug it into Uber Eats and plug it into like whatever food app, and it arrives at their door in time for the meeting. But if they're not comfortable, a great idea that he shared with me was he looked into it with his marketing people, and you're able to send the person a link so that they can order. And it just pays for their order. So just creative ways to really still break bread with people and have that moment of, hey, we can't sit at a cafe, but thank goodness that these meal delivery services are able to, bridge that gap.
I love
That's
that.
awesome.
Yeah, the lock-in you get, and Pearl, you mentioned this to us a while back. I've told literally everyone. It really is. I mean, I would feel obligated to keep the meeting personally.
Yeah, it's great.
I think everyone else would too, right? I mean, something really important would have to come up to cancel that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a great tip. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just a nice way to make it more personal as well. Like I know, so like people are on Zooms, on, Microsoft Teams all day long. And if you can just say, hey, like one thing that I've had as well during the meetings, while they're eating, turn your camera off. It's fine. Because that's a bit of an awkward view. So again, that's just another way to like make the person feel like more comfortable. Like these are just little tips and tricks like I found, because I know that the pressure to keep the camera on can be a lot for people. And sometimes you've got 4 meetings back to back to back. So you just want a break to eat. And even if business doesn't come out of it right away, like that's something that, that person will remember and follow up like, that day I got a break. I heard them talk to me about their company quite a bit, or just for a few minutes, 30 minutes. I try to keep my lunch meetings 30 minutes, an hour if the person is, really apt to have a conversation. But if it's going to be mostly me talking, I like to do 30 minutes, keep it quick.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And to the point about virtual conferences, for me, I haven't found them to be fruitful in terms of connecting and really getting the type of engagement that I'd like. So I would really be interested to hear anyone else's experiences from either as an attendee, an exhibitor, a sponsor, like what's worked for you, because that's something that I'd really like to learn about.
Same here. We've struggled with that too, where it's been a challenge.
Yeah, for sure. So Nicole, I'm gonna single a few people out. Nicole, Topeka, Doris, have you guys done any virtual events like as an exhibitor?
Hi everyone, this is Deepika Gusai, and I cover clinical drug supply at Signon Health. I've worked, we have done shows together, Chris, Heather, and I, for many years. So yeah, next time I'll have my video on as well. I will say that the first few months was super challenging for me as well. But what I tried doing, along the lines with you, I started sending Starbucks just online links to people. And I was like, whenever you guys want to do like a quick, and it's easier on, the company as well. And it's just like a quick thing. I don't need to like do a lot of back and forth in terms of address and stuff. It's just like, $20-25 Starbucks laying, hey, get yourself coffee whenever you want. So I felt like people were like, oh, in a first hello, we are kind of getting like free couple of cups of coffee. So let's chat. So I was able to get few morning meetings like that. The other thing I tried attending, even if it was not related to the scope of clinical drug supply, what I'm focused in at the moment. I tried attending as many virtual conferences as possible, just to, get into the different rooms and sessions and see what people are talking about. And as an organization, Signan Health has a big bucket of services. So, I would just hear some of the questions that people were asking, just note down their name, and then connect on LinkedIn saying that, hey, I heard you, ask about this question and looks like you're interested in it. This is just some information and I'm happy to chat more. So I was able to get good amount of traction actually through that, like for a couple of months.
That's great. Yeah, what I found in as an attendee in a virtual meeting, I found the breakout rooms that were being set up. Those for me were the most beneficial.
I agree there.
Yeah, because it's very much like this. Usually a little bit smaller group, maybe 5-6 people. So I found that went well. I do like ordering lunch and coffee. Sounds fantastic. So we're definitely gonna.
Yeah, I really like that. That's very like it's low committal, like a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Everyone loves Starbucks. That's fantastic. I'm definitely, and I could get those in bulk and expense them so much easier.
Exactly. So it's a lot easier than, some of the restaurant, or Uber Eats or Grub Eats receipts.
Mhm.
I would just literally buy them in bulk and just keep sending them. And people really appreciated that, especially for the first few months where everybody was just trying to get to virtual. Another thing that I did along with coffee, as silly as it sounds, I would send free sanitizers, this thing. So all they had to do is just click, and because everybody was running out of sanitizers.
That's liquid gold.
Exactly,
yeah.
right? So I think those two things worked out great for me.
That's
Oh,
awesome.
Did anyone have a good experience with a particular platform from a conference you attended? I'm really curious to know who did it right, because there's been a lot of really not great. But if anybody had a really great experience, I would love to know.
Yeah.
Maybe I could throw something in here.
Yeah.
What we've done, because we're a small company, what we've tried to do is, my colleague Martin is also on the call with us today, or the conference call with us today, or the video call with us today, trying to figure out all of this. But the one thing we've done is we've tried to do a lot of different conferences. And what we found out is prior to the conference, if you can schedule one-on-one meetings, if you can plan those ahead, there are conferences where there's nothing that you can do. And there are others where you can plan ahead, do the work properly. So it's not the one-on-one physical contact, but it's as close as you can get. And those are the ones where we've had more success.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. We did a few last year where for whatever reason, the organizers weren't able to open up the networking until the day before. Yeah. And they may have shared the contact list, but you weren't able to prepare in advance to line up those meetings. And I think as last year went on, that dynamic changed, and I think the organizers sort of caught on to the fact that that we all needed a little bit more lead time. And I don't think they're all doing it yet, but I've now seen up to 2 weeks where the platform's open for one-on-one networking.
Actually, even, and sometimes you've got more time after.
Yes, that's also true. Yeah, SCDM, I think their platform, I think it's still available now. I think they're 8 months post show, where it's.
That's actually a really good point, because I never thought about popping into somebody's DMs on one of those apps a month after a conference.
Has that been more fruitful, reaching out and connecting with people, via the meetings that you're talking about, Eric, setting up? Has that been more fruitful than just straight LinkedIn email messaging or just the regular message, connecting with people?
It has. Let's just say for us, a lot of our business is done doing trade shows.
Yeah.
So by trying to do this, what's happened is what I've realized is actually during the main hours or the proper hours of the trade show, a lot of the people are more focused on their needs. And if you're trying to sell them something, they're not very receptive. So if you contact them a couple of weeks ahead and you try and schedule something a week after, you're going to have more success. In the meantime, you can have those 15 minutes, just talk quickly in between, but let them do their real business. And after that, you can communicate with them and they're going to be more receptive.
Oh, wow.
And it's a good point. Yeah,
I didn't real. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Chris.
No, go ahead, bro.
Oh, I was going to say, I didn't realize, well, I think the conferences that we did earlier last year didn't have that feature in terms of being able to like speak and engage, like connect with people afterwards. Like that's something that like in conversations with what's the ROI going to be on this conference, if just to your point, during the day, people were like just doing, you know, going to their breakout rooms and more focused on that. But from a BD perspective, having that extra time, that's definitely something I could bring to management and say, this is something they didn't have before.
Yeah. Yep.
And if I may add one thing that's not to this topic, but we do a lot of conferences where we present.
Okay.
And what we've realized is oftentimes those presentations, people will attend because they're there, but they're not sure if they're there, so they're going to go. If you're doing I did over a month, I did 4 or a month and a half, I did 4 presentations in France, which is something I wouldn't have done. So
Yeah.
the fact that I was stuck in actually gave me a bit of an opportunity to crisscross through France, where I would have gone once, maybe twice, covered 1 or 2, but not all of them. So there's give and take. I would go back to the way we were before, but if you try and work around it, there are ways to try and find opportunities.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, there's no way we could have done 4 events like that unless they were closer together, that in terms of timing.
Yeah.
And so this way, yeah, you can actually do that.
And people at first were not familiar, but now a lot of people understand that this is the way it's being done. So they are being more receptive. And actually, the last thing I'm going to say, and then I'm going to shut up because there's other people that would like to talk, is the fact that there are places that might not even have been receptive to your presentations simply because they're busy. But right now, people are starving for ways to talk to people and face to face, even if it's a distance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Pearl, I'd love to sit down with you at a point in time, but at least I've got this. I can see you and we can chat now. So that's positive.
Yeah.
So they're more receptive to you. As long as you bring them something of value and it's not just a sales pitch, they're going to be listening.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think to your point, I mean, you were saying that like you were organizing talks, etc. I mean, what have been your success or your views about your company hosting a webinar? And if you want to do something like this, I mean, it's almost along the same line. But what has been your success in terms of getting the attendees that you wanted to get?
Actually, for us, especially with Europeans, if I talk about the work we did with the Europeans,
yep.
The cycle can be up to 2 years. So I'll be able to tell you in 2023. But in the meantime, I've been able up to now to get a couple of people that called me that we started contact. This is something that if I'd stayed here and not done a thing and said, oh, I'm so sorry, I can't do anything, it wouldn't have happened. So next time I'm going to go in France first, there's going to be so many people looking forward to seeing me because I'm going to be the guy from Quebec who's a bit different. And on top of that, well, we'll have something to talk about. So I've got more contact instead of doing my BD work, but limited as much as possible. So trying to think outside the box.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good thing. I mean, like when you look at all your LinkedIn feeds and when you look at, biospheres and all these different publications, all these companies are advertising webinars and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, those are like, that's a different way of doing that. I mean, unless you have a big marketing machine behind you to, filter all the leads and to filter all those things for you, it's a huge challenge. And it's also very expensive to be able to host a webinar. I mean, I've been looking into this and it's like $35,000. And
oh, wow.
I mean,
Yeah.
what's the ROI?
Azim, all right. we need to connect. I can help you with that one.
It does not have to be that much.
No, and
For
we
sure.
went through this too. I'm sure
No.
we've all received calls from the X-Talks BD people.
Yes.
And now I'm not going to knock their service because they actually do a lot to get the audience for you. But in terms, and you know, it's not, but they're not also not that inexpensive. I think that we were getting quoted 15,000 for 3 webinars, which, you know, it's not that bad, but it's still $15,000. We did it ourselves. We just used Zoom. We used the webinar feature in Zoom. But that's the easy part. The hard part was the 3 months in advance of getting people to sign up. That was all the heavy lifting, right? So yeah, we invested our own time because we weren't traveling, so we had more time. And you know, they were successful. One thing we did learn is, and also through these meetings that we've been hosting, this one, I think it's now our 6th, you will probably only get half as many as the people in the meeting that register.
At the most. At
the most, maybe, you know, 30%. So if you're trying to get 20 people, at least get 40 to register or 50 kind of thing. So that's something we've learned. Yeah.
And the investment in what we did with, I mean, I don't have, I had to come up to a separate room because we all work from home and I have dogs downstairs and it's noisy. So I don't have a good camera and all, but we invested in the green screens, like Chris was saying, and a bunch of things and put together backgrounds and stuff. And it was much more economical than we thought it would be once we actually got into it. It just took a little bit of time, but that's why we're doing this meeting tonight, just to kind of talk about it and share it. And it sounds like, Nicole, you've got some good tips.
Yeah, I want to hear what Nicole, you were really excited there for a second. So
I know, we want to hear all the goodies you have, Nicole.
I have no goodies. I really don't. No, I think one of the best things, and one thing that I've seen been very successful in the virtual market, is gamification.
Okay.
And understanding what gamification means to you, because the first time I heard it, I was like, okay, yay, huh? Go listen to your first 20-minute spiel, and then all of a sudden them turn it into a murder mystery. I'm not kidding. It was extremely successful. It was I was very hesitant on the fact that I was going to give up an hour and a half of my time, and I had no idea what was going on. But what did I do? I went in, I heard them talk for 10, 15, 20 minutes, and then all of a sudden we turned into a murder mystery. And I will always remember, okay, this is the company that did murder mystery, and it made me a part of it. And I knew everybody who was on the screen, all 25 people who were a part of this. We were all together and we connected afterwards. So just understanding that you have to be as creative as possible. And the biggest thing that I've learned throughout all of this is the integration of marketing and business development and sales together. That's where we have to be. We really have to be doing that. And we really have to be moving forward, relying on each other for our ROIs, and ensuring the messaging is out there is just different, because everybody's getting hit with so many things all the time. It's all in front of us. I have Zoom fatigue. I love you guys, and I've been so excited to be a part of this. But at the same time, I'm like, I've been on 10 hours of Zoom meetings since 7 a.m. this morning.
Sorry, Nicole, I have to wear special Zoom glasses at this time of the day.
Ryan, I need those Zoom glasses because like, can I see you? I feel like Bernie Sanders.
From the blue screen.
I have for tearing.
You know, Nicole, what your point about the whole game thing, actually, and it's not even something I mentioned to Christopher yet, but a friend of mine and I were talking, and she was saying one of the things they did with their company was they actually made a little package of like things for kids to do, like worksheets and stuff that were fun, and sent them to somebody and said, because they knew that person had kids, and sent them these and said, these are fun and new. I know we're going to be busy on a call for a half an hour. I don't know if this is helpful, but and when you find out, like, knew the kids' ages and sent them these little fun things for these kids to do that their kids might have a good time with, so they could actually pay attention and spend some time on this call. And it's stuff like that that makes a huge difference.
It does, because we don't have that opportunity face to face.
Yeah.
And like Pearl was saying earlier, virtual lunches, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's absolutely phenomenal. We all need to be implementing this. It's very exciting and it's a lot of fun, but it's very challenging because it's 8 p.m., 8:30 where I'm at, because I'm on the East Coast. And you know, you start early in the morning and you keep going. How do you get people to want to be involved in everything? And how do you get them to want to hear your message? Because we all have something of benefit to say, but at the same time, $35,000 for a webinar is unheard of. Don't do it. I have other sources. Come talk to me.
I've seen 10, but 30 is really high. Yeah.
Well, to your point, Nicole, about sales and marketing really like having that marriage pairing together, us at Pilatus, we're using this opportunity to completely rebrand, and we're like, the website is going to be is in the process of being redone. We are having we're putting out a completely new slide decks. Like, we're able to invest in the message, the brand, and really making sure, like, for me, this has been great because I can be as nitpicky as I want. Like, this is the most I felt in any organization that I've been heard in terms of, no, this doesn't look good, that doesn't look good. This is what I'm finding in Zoom meetings. Like, how functional is this? Well, I just need a couple of points and this and that and this and that. So that, from a marketing standpoint, like, just being a lot more hands-on there and really being picky about where the dollars go, because we're not traveling. And for us, like, we have a bigger parent company, so we don't necessarily need to worry about losing that spend. So we can really not worry about travel and spend as much as we want on, like, really making sure that, like, our image and from a branding perspective is just reflective of the time, because so many, like, some things just need to go.
You hit on it. Branding, and what needs to go, and what needs to stay. And at the end of the day, we all need to understand that even in 2022, we're going to be in a hybrid period of meetings. So we have to, this isn't a, oh, yay, we're embracing a virtual, or we might not do virtual this year. We have to embrace where we're at, and where we're at is we're in a virtual land right now. We're going to move to a hybrid, probably still be in a hybrid in 2022, because we have to understand and remember that our sponsors' budgets do not have travel associated with that this year. So no matter how much we try or what we do, we need to understand that the times have changed, and this is just our normal, and our normal is okay, and we're going to embrace it. And we have to, as this meeting is together, and why I'm so excited to be a part of this is why we're changing, and we're going to do this together.
One of the questions I have, and something we've talked about sort of a little bit, is one of the things we talked about was starting to do a lot more feedback from clients on metrics around what they're getting, what they want, what's happening. Is anybody else kind of starting to do that sort of process? Because it's just something we've talked about. Christopher, you can jump in here. Just trying to start to get more feedback on our product, maybe thinking about user group stuff, and how do we engage them from that sort of, you're already in it, tell us what you want, tell us how we're doing it wrong, tell us what we're doing right. Does anybody else have that already in place, or just curious to know? No.
Well, Heather, I mean, I guess it just depends what kind of services that you provide. I mean, for your sake, I mean, you have an EDC platform, so it's easy for you to do a demo over Zoom to some of your clients. So if I represent a CRO that's located in South Korea, one of the limitations that I have is that my client is not going to travel to South Korea to do a qualification visit or a QA visit or an audit. And that's the big limiting step right now with all this travel. Whereas these sponsors will go to qualified individuals or CROs already, right? So I guess it just depends. It just depends on what type of services that you offer in the drug development ballgame.
Sure. Yeah, it might be easier for us in our position to just sort of start saying to our clients. One of the things we talked about was sort of doing a quarterly starting this year, basically like the user group approach, where if you use our services, we want to hear from you. Let's pick some key people that use our services, happy or not, and say, we want to hear from you. Let's put together a questionnaire about what we've offered you, how your experience has been, and let's start putting some metrics behind that and then moving that forward. I mean, I know if you take the big companies like the Salesforce, for example, they have actual conferences for their user groups.
They do, yeah.
Not something we can do, we're small, but it's something that in this virtual landscape, I think is a great way to engage people if you can do it in a way that makes sense. So just wondered if anybody had experience with doing that, because I think it might be a great thing to dip our toes in the water too, but not something we've done yet.
I highly recommend it. I'm sorry, Pearl.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, no, please. You're the star. You go.
Oh, no. No, I was just going to say just a way that I'm trying to get feedback. I kind of gauge how receptive a client is. And even if we've been working with them, just a simple question of like, do you prefer emails or phone calls? So for me, just having those little notes of who prefers what, that helps me stay up to date with every little thing. So I know like XYZ client wouldn't mind me giving them a phone call quickly rather than adding something to the top of their, more 4 or 5 questions to their inbox. So really just like honing into like what that client prefers. Like if you want me to call you on your cell, you want me to call you on a xylophone, like I will figure it out. So just asking, like for me, that's something that's been very important. And instead of like figuring out like, oh, is this a text? Is this a call? And that just helps me stay up to date and on top of whatever, like the needs of my client. So it's not a long gap in terms of when I'm getting feedback, because I'd like to know it in real time so I can address it.
That's a really good point. Yeah. And actually, I'm not actually in the sales environment anymore. I'm on operations now, but I love that. That's a great point. And I actually hadn't thought about that, but taking that into operations when it comes to our actual clients versus sales side and making sure we really know how do they want to be communicated with is a really great point. Now it matters more than ever. So that's a good one. Thanks. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
One thing I'd like to add to Heather's point, I've experienced this firsthand when you bring people in and you have a user group. And this is the days when we could bring people in, feed them, they'd stay there for 2 days.
Yeah.
Excuse me, you have to be very careful because a user group can very quickly escalate that it ends up being just a bitch session. Because you're going to have somebody over here that had correct me if I'm wrong, but somebody over here is going to say, well, I had a problem with this. And then somebody's over here saying, well, I didn't have that problem, but I had that one with this. And then all of a sudden, people that are sitting in the room that don't have any problems are scratching their heads saying, geez, am I missing something? Am I
digging for it?
Yeah. Comes in the mob mentality.
Yeah. I would, don't ask a question that you don't already know the answer to. And that's where you can take something like your Starbucks card, and everybody's familiar with Chimp Survey. You send those out to you, say, take 5 minutes of your time, 10 questions, tick it off.
Yeah.
You give them, depending on geographically where they're located. I'm in Boston, you've got to send a Dunkin' Donuts card.
Very
Every place else, if you're up in Canada, it's going to be Tim Hortons.
Correct.
Your Starbucks, wherever it is. But those are very good. People won't feel intimidated in a room or, here, because not always, but a lot of the people that we sell to and we work with, let's face it, a lot of them are introverts. They work in an office. They're not extroverts like us. So we have to, you sort of know your audience, which we do. But I think something that's more subtle and lower key like that, and when you send a survey like that, you can get very dynamic metrics out of there depending on how you ask the question. And then when you get all of those, you get 100 responses and you've got 10 questions with each, then you can put out the results of the survey to everybody of your users, and then they'll see some metrics. And then the next time you do a survey like that, everybody's going to want it because they're going to want the coffee card. So that's just 2 cents.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. I just wanted to add real quick. I work in the localization business. I work at a company called Pro Translating, which is based out of Miami. And a prior employer based out of Shanghai, EC Innovations, they had built into their CRM an automated survey that would come out like maybe about 2 weeks after they would deliver a product. A survey would go out automatically to all of their customers, and it would have an opportunity to do like a multiple choice, like between excellent and poor based upon what the questions were. And then they had a section where you could type in whatever you would wanted to do. So that kind of experience and getting that feedback was tremendous. Because you could feed off that, and that would control how we are communicating with customers. And that changes our business model about how we need to fulfill their needs individually and just their overall business.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's great.
Yeah, having that kind of survey is definitely key. The company that I'm working for now, Pro Translating, we have a marketing team of like 2 people, and the salespeople are included to a certain extent, but I'm finding that it is very overwhelming as far as creating the copy and targeting and setting up within our systems. It's just too much. So we just recently hired a third party to come in and just overhaul it and just go gangbusters on our marketing efforts, because that's really what we need within the localization marketplace. Has been very dynamic for the past 12 months. Smaller companies are being absorbed by larger companies. For example, like today, I found out Stryker Translations just bought out Lingotech. And so these are 2 very, they're very tech savvy and have a lot of resources globally. But the market itself is very dynamic. And so having that right team and being able to get feedback from your customers through surveys is really key.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I completely blanked on this, even preparing our notes for this. I didn't even mention it. When we realized we weren't going to be doing any in-person meetings for the year last year, we took a significant portion of that travel budget and pushed it into digital advertising. So we completely expanded our pay-per-click campaign and our LinkedIn advertising. Not only the number of ads we were running, but the geography, including covering Europe. Because otherwise, we had the money already allocated. We might as well have wanted to use it. Yeah, and we do have one client that if I send them an email and ask them what day and time they want to meet, they'll never reply. If I send them a calendar invite with the date and time that I pick, they accept it immediately. Right, so
it's that's actually a really
that's not
good
too
one.
Pushy.
I send calendar invites for every request I need. I never ask them in an email when they want to meet. And that was something I started doing when I did BD, but as an operational person, every single person that I talk to appreciates that. Just give me something to decline or accept. Don't make me think about it.
Yeah,
that is huge.
I do that more often now, and I'll even say in the body of the message, if this day and
this
time
doesn't
not
work,
fine, just
no
let
problem.
it go and we'll adjust it. But it's one less thing they have to do.
Yeah, for sure. It's huge. And 90% of the time I get an acceptance.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. They much prefer that. Just take out every single barrier, including thinking.
Well,
Yeah, the simpler. And prior to that, I typically wouldn't ask them when they wanted to meet. I'd give them options, 2 or 3 options, so at least they have a choice. But I found this to be far more efficient as well.
Yeah.
Well, while we're on the topic of like risky things, like does anyone have any things that just haven't worked in terms of like just risks that you've seen, people trying to connect with you, work with you, partner with you, anything that you've seen in the last 12 months that was just cringeworthy?
That's a good question.
Oh,
I mean, it's great if not.
oh, Brian's got
Brian,
one.
you got one?
I mean, Pearl, this isn't, I wouldn't say cringe-worthy, but I think people are getting email fatigue right now.
Oh, yeah.
And to your point earlier, everybody's carries his phone. Everybody, and I have on my notes here, everybody's on Skype, WhatsApp, Signal, text, or FaceTime. I would challenge everyone here. I've done this with some of the other groups I work with. How many people do you have on LinkedIn as connections? When's the last time you went through that list and called them? Those are your contacts. That's your inner circle. Don't be afraid to call those people. Don't give them an email. You more than likely have their phone number in your iPhone or Android. Do a couple of them. Best time to call, 3:30 to 6 p.m. Don't call in the early morning. Reach out to your contacts. How are you doing? How can I help you?
Yeah.
And then listen. And then they'll say, how can I help you? And then ask them, the people you deal with, do they want emails, text messages, or phone calls? I've learned in the last 4 months, the needle's been all over the place. The last 3 or 4 months between COVID and the holidays, I learned very, very quickly, FaceTime and text messaging is the best way people will respond. You leave a voicemail message or an email message, it might go dark. You send them a text within an hour. Sorry, I'm busy. Let's do this.
Yeah.
That's great points, Brian. Yeah.
Well, those are awesome. And are any of you active on Twitter? Because I found great success on Twitter, and I have met actually not in this company because I'm not doing BD, but before this, I got a couple of clients through Twitter actions, and it was just. Is that something you found traction on? Because I have found that's where a lot of people are really interactive too. No, not Twitter people.
I will go out on the limb and say I still have not figured out Twitter. I know what it is. I know how it works. I have a Twitter account. Our corporate one, I've delegated to Heather. She runs it.
Good job, Heather.
Yeah, and I appreciate her effort on that because I just can't wrap my head around it.
Chris, another one of those. Talk to me. I can help you out here.
All right, I'll have to learn. Also, Heather has pushed me into using Facebook's groups. Another place I really don't like spending much time.
And you know, speaking of groups, actually, that's a good transition into ACRP.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Instagram
is
people do.
more fashion now.
Yeah, but
wow.
Like ACRP and some of the other bigger groups that are overarching bodies actually have extremely active user groups in their own portals.
Yeah.
And I was surprised to see how busy they were. And the cost of entry to a lot of these places is easily picked up on the same as the cost of a flight from here to San Diego for me. And so a lot of these groups like the Cancer Association, stuff like that, have their own user groups right within them that are surprisingly active. And I have seen a lot of results through those too. I don't know if anybody else is in any of those types of like high arching organizations, but I've seen a lot of action there too.
Yeah.
So going along the lines with the groups, what I've started doing just this month is joining some of those LinkedIn groups where there's a lot of activity related to the product I'm involved in. So for example, for clinical drug supply, and just seeing, the kind of questions people are asking and the kind of discussions that are happening, because it also helps for you to take that feedback to, your teams internally and to your scientific team, that, hey, this is what people are worried about right now. Like, for example, direct to patient in my case, can we post something there? So as soon as we post something there, we get a lot of traffic, and I post that link even in that group. And then if people are interested, we are happy to even do, a call or whatever it is. So that's been somewhat really helpful in the last 2 to 3 weeks, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I like LinkedIn very much. I think for B2B, looks like LinkedIn is really great.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've only ever been in sales since there's been the internet. So I'm not sure how anybody did sales pre-LinkedIn. You literally had to pick up the phone and call people.
Well, that's so interesting.
Who's responsible for ClinOps at your company? Because you can't look it up anywhere. Yeah, this I think we actually have it quite easy these days, all things considered. Yeah.
Well, I think Brian's point is so interesting about like just being bold in sending a text or going back to like cold calling and just in that frame and that like that I was just taught that, oh my goodness, like you don't want to catch people by surprise, but especially now, like you've got to be bold. So yeah. I think that all of these different platforms are non-traditional ways to get people's attention, because like to the point of being able to send a text, you can mark an email unread. Like people are constantly on their phones and they like, it's a little more it's just a little, it feels a little more rude to ignore text, even if I didn't want to respond to someone, as long as it was something a little bit personalized and it's not like, a robo message, I'd respond.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For sure.
But sometimes people don't give a phone number. I found most of the time it's easy to find a email number or, social media account, but phone number is sometimes it's not easy to get it.
Most people today, when they send you an email from their business, there's a phone number on there. And this is where a CRM, I don't care which one you use. I'm not going to give a plug for HubSpot, but that is what I use. Whatever CRM you use, take the time to fill it out. Their email, their title, what time zone they're in, text message them. You probably connected to them on LinkedIn. I'm sure Heather and Chris and everybody else here knows our industry is like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. If I want to get into a company, if I don't have a connection with them in my network, I can call Chris, I can call Heather, I can call somebody and say, I'm trying to get into, I don't know, I'll say Biogen. I'd like to talk to the person that has something to do with oncology. Chris will say, geez, I only know somebody that's in this therapeutic area. Call this one. And when you get an introduction into a company or into somebody, they're going to take your text, they're going to take your email, they're going to take your voicemail message. Mm-hmm. And they might not, give you the answer that you want to hear, but they'll get back to you.
Yep.
That's actually a really good point, Brian, is that we can do better to rely on each other. And that referral process, we're not islands alone.
No,
we are all here together with complementary services. And even if they're competitive services, we're like, you're not going to call on that person, but that's competitive to you. But we can work together a little bit more. And ultimately, we're giving something to the client that the client is actually looking for.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like call your friend, call a friend. It's good. I pick call a friend.
Well, that's that's a great. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Who's that?
I just wanted to throw a curveball off of this. I've done something early this year. I've just called up people saying, I'm not calling to talk to you about business. I just wanted to say hi and see how you're doing.
Nice.
So many people responded positively. And they went, what? You don't want to talk business? We're so focused on business every time we pick up the phone that we forgot to be humans. And I'm sure that at a point in time, if I need their help, they're going to be a whole lot more receptive.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Adriana, did you have any? I saw you took yourself off mute. So I wanted to know if you had something to share. And it's so nice to see your face. Hello.
Nice to see you all too. Thank you for the invite. This is great. No, I was just going to say to Eric's point, I mean, the whole pandemic, or one of the positive things about it, is that it has given us the opportunity to get a little bit closer to the clients too, right? Like I find myself texting them, you know, where I probably normally wouldn't, you know, text them just to check in. How are you doing? You know, how are things, you know, how are you managing the kids, and all of that. So it's provided a unique opportunity to get a little closer to them, a little bit more personal. And, you know, a lot of times we're talking to them and the kids are in the background screaming. And so it makes it a little more personal.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and on this idea of leveraging networks, there's two things we do. One, pretty much all of our webinars and all of these meetings, we do with partners. So they're all obviously complementary partners. It wouldn't be a competitor, but it gives us an opportunity to leverage two networks in terms of, you know, getting people to attend. But it also gives us an opportunity to cross-reference each other in terms of the prospects that each of us has, and it sort of shares the work. And the other piece it does is it gives the audience that we're talking to a heck of a lot more information or value for that meeting, because they're hearing from two companies. That's one thing we do. The other one is, and I think we all do this to a certain extent, we're very much listening for opportunities to help other people. So, and we, not everybody can do this, but we're very transparent with our partners in terms of our prospect list. So I have monthly meetings with various partners where I literally show them, here are the companies we're engaged with. And the reason I do that is because I want to know if they're also talking to them, for two reasons. One, I don't want to mess up their sale. And two, if they have a better opportunity into that organization, I'll let them run with it. And so there's a lot of synergy there. And the other thing that we've seen happening is they may be going after a company that one of our other partners is already involved in or owns. And I'll give you one example. One of our CRO partners on the West Coast is engaging with a small sponsor called Sonosite. And it just so happens that our partner, Fujifilm, owns Sonosite. So immediately we were able to get our partner to do warm referrals within the organization into Sonosite. And then that it actually happened again with Fuji Pharma. It's a little obvious because of the name, but you know, we suddenly got these warm introductions, and so we're really transparent. Now, not everyone wants to be that transparent, but it's been working well for us.
That's actually a great idea. Is there a way for us collectively to organize what do you need? What do you got? And I'm not saying that in a dismissive manner to the client side. I'm saying it in a efficiency approach to what they want. And how do we collectively say, because I know if I was buying something, I would, if I'm renovating my house and someone can come to me and say, here's all the things versus here's a flooring person, a painter, a construction person, a this or that. How do we collectively present more useful things in a more efficient manner? That'd be great.
Yeah.
What do you got? What do you need? What do you got? What do you need? That'd be great.
Well, it's interesting to bring that up. There's a couple of, Mike Gorman has a Craigslist.
He's awesome. The site's
He's been great with that. Yeah.
So, I mean, I've jokingly said with other people in networking groups, I said, why don't we, instead of calling it a network meeting, let's call it, you know, a clinical research, you know, flea market. You know, you bring what you've got.
Yeah.
And let me see. I've got these old headlights and you've got you know, people can sort of
like
a flea market with everybody's services.
Yep.
Well, that just leads to like it makes me think of one of the situations that I recently had with it was originally a prospective client. We like went through our proposal, told them what we did, and they came to us with a very specific problem. And after searching internally, we found that that's not something that we could help with. And for me, like I hate saying no. It's not something that we can do. It's not anything that, it's a very difficult situation. Needed a contact at a sponsor company that really wasn't trying to release their product information, and they needed to be able to continue this trial. So for me, knowing that my team couldn't help, I wasn't going to put it on anyone else on my team to do this extra work essentially for free. So I took it upon myself to go into my network and really ask around with the information that I could share. And I actually ended up bringing the two together and hosting a meeting that was supposed to be 30 minutes. It went the full hour. And this person who was originally not interested in switching vendors, and they were very happy with the product that they were getting, was so grateful that I helped them solve a problem that really truly wasn't mine and wasn't in our wheelhouse at all, and helped her really long-term be able to continue this trial. She says, Pearl, you know what, we're actually going to what can we buy from you? I have a new incentive to now change vendors because you are the first person who helped me with this problem. And like just that kind of relationship building within my network, that was like after the call, the two of them were calling me at the same time saying, thank you so much for introducing us. Yeah. So even like just from that sense, if it's not something you can do, just being aware of like who in your network can help. And then additionally for us, we don't have competitors because we work with people who are going again, like for the same business. And sometimes, to your point, Chris, we will bow out because we're not going to compete with a client. So just being nimble in that way and understanding that at the end of the day, like relationships, I feel like are so much more important because you want like everyone, no one wants to feel like they're being sold. Like every app, every notification, someone's trying to take something from you. So if you find someone who just genuinely wants to help you, I think like you'll win more relationships and more trust that way.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, I don't know if anybody's heard of BNI, Business Network International. It's there's chapters all over the world, but it's basically a referral marketing program. And in another life, when I owned and ran a search marketing company, that was one of the ways in which we generated business. So I learned early on the power of referrals. And it's, you know, I don't necessarily go and ask for my network to send me referrals. What I do is send them referrals. I generate those opportunities for them. So I'm always listening, you know, when we're prospecting, and, you know, the sponsor that I'm talking to, and they say, you know, we're a small med device company and we're having regulatory issues, I know the call's going out to Eric. You know, I can't solve it for them, and they need to solve it before they can work with me. So I'll refer Eric. I did it just the other day with our sister company, Biosys. They're a CDMO, and the CRO in Europe that we're trying to do some business with had mentioned they're having issues finding a good CDMO. And I was like, well, you know, we've got the solution for you. So I just introduced them the other day. And when I do that, it's generating goodwill and faith in my network. And naturally people are like, I'm going to have to, you know, reciprocate. So it's a very nice sort of a symbiotic relationship, if you will. Yeah.
Well, I think one of the key points in we're all good BD people and we know the industry and we know what we're doing, but I think it's something that we do intuitively. You become a resource to your clients. Exactly. And that resource is that, you know, the value proposition that you really can't put a price on, but that's the value piece that working with the team at TrialStat, working with Pearl and your comparator and your team, we're not going to take food off another company's table because that's not in our wheelhouse. We're going to pass it off. And here's 3 people or 3 companies you should talk to. That's what a very successful professional business development person does. I don't care whether you're in the clinical research business or you sell red, white, and blue widgets. Those are what the ones probably, I'll speak for myself. Those are the ones that have been around for a while. That's what we do, and sometimes we don't even think about it anymore.
Yeah. Yep.
What would be interesting to me, which I don't think I've seen, is, and potentially it's something, Christopher, we could think about, is, when you have this sort of 6 degrees of separation maps, I don't know where all my people that I love to talk to, everybody on this call who we see each other at conferences, I don't know where we all fit in the satellite of those connections. And it would be interesting to think about how we could put together something where it makes it easier for us to pull that out and kind of say, like, here's the matrix of everything in what we do in this industry. And where do we all fit in that place? And instantly be able to, when somebody needs something, say, here's who I need, here's who I can refer you to. It's easy to know that, when we're at a meeting, we'd be like, oh yeah, whatever, this is the person you should talk to. But I don't feel like it's structured somewhere. And if we could make a place for that, that would be really kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm. Guys, we're on the hour.
Oh yeah, we're over time.
Heather, I'm going to say one word to you, and you can Google it afterwards. It's called Mind Spring.
Mind Spring.
All right, that's probably what I'm looking for. That's great. Thank you, Brian.
I want to ask everyone here. I mean, I know in an hour we barely scratched the surface, and I know I've got a long list of other tips or experiences that we want to share. After this, I will share the recording, and we'll also take down the notes and all the tips. We'll add in everything else that we didn't get to talk about. But I am curious, are you guys interested in doing this more frequently, specifically this topic? Because if you are, we don't mind doubling up on these meetings and scheduling another one in, say, a couple weeks from now. So I'll leave that with you guys. If you're interested, let me know. We're happy to actually make this a recurring topic, because we've got 12 more or 11 more months of selling like this at least. So
yeah, I want to dive into the conference stuff and all the events and things that people are using and the different places that they're getting contacts and stuff. That would be really interesting for anybody who wanted to.
Yeah. Would this be useful on like a quarterly basis?
Yeah, something
like that. As like a certain number of events, and seeing like as the seasons change, obviously the political landscape, like just how like just group like quarterly, I think, or if you wanted to do sooner, bi-monthly, something like that. But I think like with just some time and new experiences to bring, I think that would be really useful.
All right.
Yeah, I would be definitely interested. Bi-monthly sounds good, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really learned a lot, lots of tips. I mean, in this market, in this pandemic, we really need to be creative. I think that's, you really need to be adaptive.
Yeah.
How your strategy to fit the new situation, it changed dramatically.
Yeah.
Dynamic, always.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you. Thanks everyone for joining. This was fantastic. Pearl, thank you for being our guest. You did an awesome job.
Thank you, Pearl. It was so nice to see so many familiar faces, honestly. It's just so nice to see you all. I hope you're well and safe, and everybody around you is safe and well. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for having me.
Bye, guys. Have a great night.
Chris and Heather.
Bye.
Bye, all.